The oppressive California summer heat seared the immaculate grounds of the Sussexes' Montecito estate, but the stifling tensions within its palatial walls rendered the sweltering temperatures an afterthought. For Prince Harry, once the perpetual golden child of the Windsor dynasty, an unholy maelstrom of crisis had descended upon his exiled paradise, one threatening to detonate his tenuous family and shatter what few remaining ties still bound him to the British crown. In the depths of the ornate study, Harry slumped in a high-backed leather chair with his head cradled in his hands, the very portrait of a broken and desperate man. Endless streams of vitriolic missives from Meghan's legal team mocked him in deafening silence from the antique oak desk to his right. The smeared ink and crumpled pages told the story of a husband crushed under the weight of a once sacrosanct marriage's nuclear immolation. He had begged, no, pleaded on bended knee, with his estranged wife to consider alternative paths forward, any scenario that could prevent their innocent children from being irrevocably ensnared and emotionally scarred by the vortex of hatred and legal viciousness spiraling between them. Time and again, Meghan had rebuffed his tearful entreaties with that same cold, pitiless mask of determination. Within her ruthless drive to inflict maximum devastation upon the institution that rejected her ambition, no collateral damage would be spared, not even the psyches and futures of little Archie and Lily. Of course, Harry's desperate letters and phone calls to his father King Charles III had fallen on equally deaf ears. After years of selfish, publicly disloyal acts by the Duke and Duchess that had plunged the monarchy into its most cataclysmic modern crisis, the sovereign understandably washed his hands of his self-absorbed younger son. Charles had turned an inflexible blind eye to entreaties for intervention, the old wounds from Harry's televised blistering of Camilla still remaining terribly raw. You defiled and desecrated the very sacred oaths you swore before God and Crown when you entered into this historically consecrated marriage, Harry, Charles had pronounced in an Arctic tone during one particularly excruciating phone call. I will not undermine the integrity and sanctity of the British legal system by meddling in its equitable affairs on your behalf, not after you so willfully torched any remaining credibility with your own family. Harry exhaled a long, shuddering sigh of despair, feeling the hopeless weight of that finality engulfing him as his gaze drifted towards the solitary framed photo upon the desk's polished cherrywood surface. The image captured the Sussexes on their tour of Australia in 2018, Meghan glowing in radiant pregnancy, beaming adoringly at her husband while he planted a loving hand over her swelling belly. Both were draped in harmonious bliss and optimistic expectation for their future, wholly oblivious to the karmic storm of vitriol and discord that awaited them. Yet for all their self-aggrandizing narcissism and ego-driven identity politics, neither petulant spouse could conceivably have envisioned the cruel ironies that would befall their firstborn son Archie, or just how cruelly their calloused actions jeopardized his very existential well-being. Because the unflinching reality they had both willfully ignored at all emotional cost was this: while Archie's status as Harry's biological heir entitled him to remain within the folds of the British monarchy, the same legal privileges did not apply to his younger sister Lily, born over a year after the Megxit defection. Medical records had conclusively established the disturbing truth that the former Suits actress had employed a surrogate womb to carry her daughter to term in a successful bid to birth a second royal grandchild. Revelations of this breach of absolute trust triggered a constitutional and ethical reckoning over hereditary lineage unlike any before seen in over a millennium of Windsor dynasty rule. In the eyes of British law, Lilibet essentially amounted to yet another bastard interloper marring the integrity of the crown's bloodline, denied all trappings of title, inheritance, and association befitting the grandchild of a reigning English monarch. For as much as Meghan and Harry had spitefully chafed against the institutional racism of royal protocol, their own audacious attempts to subvert legitimacy through artifice were dealt with unsparing zero tolerance. The firm immediately sought legal termination of Lily's tenuous status and claim to the monarchy. In jurisdictional retaliation, Meghan's American attorneys launched a full-scale custody battle to have both children permanently removed from England to California, where they could be aggressively shielded from the British Crown's archaic, xenophobic influence. With unspeakable conflict bearing down between his offspring and ancestral homeland, Harry was held hostage in a paralyzing paradox. His every instinct yearned to bring his children back within the nurturing embrace of the only family structure and moral foundation he had ever known, however imperfect. Yet his once steadfast life partner had made it soul-crushingly clear there would be no retreat, no white peace through mutual compassion. In Meghan's eyes, the monarchy must be torn asunder root and stem, regardless of the collateral damage visited upon her own bloodline. The servine sounds of the private study's double doors creaking open pulled Harry from his torturous ruminations. Through his disheveled fringe of auburn hair, he peered up through anguished eyes to see Samantha Markle, Meghan's older half-sister, regarding him with unreadable pity. Though once a strident critic of his wife and lifestyle choices, Sam had implored him for audience to provide urgent counsel as his impossible familial nightmare spiraled beyond control. "What do you want?" he croaked hollowly after a prolonged silence, making no effort to rise from the chair or tidy himself in her presence. "If you've come to throw more vitriol my way for my role in destroying your family, you'll need to wait in the back of the line." Sam's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly at his brusque dismissal, but her tone remained calm and measured. "Actually, I've come to help put an end to this catastrophe, Harry. If you'll hear me out, that is." When the beleaguered royal simply stared back at her, bereft of hope or the willingness to entertain more meaningless platitudes, the elder Markle woman pressed on. "I think we can safely agree my half-sister has let the chemical imbalances of narcissistic ego and ambition shred whatever redeeming attributes she may have once possessed," Sam began with carefully constructed neutrality. "Which is why it is now up to you, and you alone, to salvage the future for your children." That at last provoked a bitter scoff of caustic laughter from Harry's cracked lips. Meddling with Meghan's vengeful fury is like reasoning with a mother grizzly bear protecting her cubs. Though in this case, I'm not sure who or what she is irrationally defending anymore. Sam ignored the biting cynicism and continued regarding him levelly. "Be that as it may, you were bred of sterner stuff than to simply slink away and abdicate to your wife's tantrums when your children's very birthright is being held for ransom. Were you not raised to uphold the highest virtues of integrity, honor and fealty of the English crown?" Her pointed words landed with the force of physical blows, striking the emasculated core of Harry's being, the very foundation of who he had always aspired to be, regardless of his recent transgressions. For once, his instinctive defensiveness softened as he detected no trace of mocking condescension or accusation in her tone. "What do you suggest, then?" he muttered darkly after what felt an eternity of potent silence. Sam regarded him somberly, hands clasped in front of her. "With the British courts deadlocked and Meghan's people outmaneuvering your legions of less tenacious solicitors, the surest avenue lies in filing your own preemptive custody motions directly here in California." Though the pragmatic suggestion rang true, Harry simply fixed her with a dull, emotionless gaze. "With what legal footing or claim could I possibly have to usurp full custody, His voice dripped with self-loathing. "According to U.S. law, Lily is, well, you were there, you heard what the paternity tests verified." Exhaling slowly through her nostrils, Sam held up a solitary index finger, eyes glinting with the first muted flash of emotion. "Now hear me clearly, Harry. Because while I harbor no personal love or loyalty for the once-beloved sisterly bond that Meghan irrevocably severed through her manipulations, even I cannot find it within me to consign her children to a ruinous future separated from their birthright father's sovereign legitimacy. Nor from the stabilizing influences of the Windsor family's grounded wisdom and dignity that you sadly cast aside on my sister's say-so." A trace of Harry's regal bearing seemed to stir beneath the emotional beatings and humiliations he had absorbed over the intervening years. He canted his head slightly to one side, a flicker of intrigue sparking in those pained emerald eyes. Sensing she had finally pierced through the emotional scar tissue surrounding his heart, Sam decided to lay her gambit bare at last. In California family courts, accusation of a child being willfully conceived under conditions of reproductive coercion and non-consensual surrogacy can nullify paternal custody instantaneously. Full stop. A portentous silence settled over the Montecito study, broken only by the muffled echoes of playing children wafting in from the terrace outside. Harry stared transfixed at the woman across from him, daring to allow one imperceptible sliver of hope to materialize in his eyes as he awaited further elucidation. Sam gave a soft, sage nod of acknowledgement as she emitted a low exhalation through pursed lips. Harry opened his mouth, closed it again, swallowing tightly.